Hi guys, it is Tamra. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about another reason why it may be difficult for you to overcome your trauma. Now in today's video, I'm going to be talking about dependent personality disorder and what that looks like. So I'm going to give you a bunch of signs and symptoms that you are dealing with someone that has dependent personality traits, not necessarily the disorder, because the disorder is rare. I think it's like 0.6% research says, is the statistic for individuals who actually get this diagnosis. And it may even be lower than that, depending on which research study that you look at. But in today's video, I just want to talk about the traits, because if you're dealing with somebody who's like this, or you happen to have the traits yourself, that may make it really difficult for you to overcome your trauma. Thank you so much for coming back to my channel. For all of you who are subscribing and participating and commenting, thank you so much. And for those who are new, I encourage you to hit that subscribe button and the bell button so that you can stick around with us and be a part of our community, but also so that you can get notifications every time I post a video. And let me briefly introduce myself. My name is Tamra, and I'm an internationally and board certified trauma therapist. I'm also licensed in mental health, and I specialize in treating children, teens, families, as well as adults. Let's jump in. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and jump into this topic, okay? Now, dependent personality disorder really is a disorder that's complicated. It's a rare diagnosis. A small percentage of individuals get the diagnosis, and not too many people show traits. But for the purpose of this video and for the purpose of this topic, I think it's important for me to point out that if you yourself have dependent personality traits or someone that you're dealing with, it's very likely that you can begin to go down a rabbit hole, a dark path, and a slippery slope. Now, dependent personality traits, really do grow out of a foundation of anxiety and fear. It's intense anxiety that's not easily treatable. And it's intense fear, and sometimes fear that really is unnecessary and unfounded. So, as we go along in this video, I want you to keep in mind that the fear and anxiety that I'm talking about in this video has a lot to do with dependent personality traits that has a foundation of fear and anxiety. Now, let me explain before we jump into the traits what a personality disorder is. So here's the definition right over here to kind of keep you on track. Because I think it's a little complicated to try to separate in your mind, if you're not used to doing this, what a personality disorder is versus what a mental illness is. So let me explain what that is. A mental illness is something that has the potential to be treated if it gets the appropriate level of care and the appropriate combination of care. So let's take schizophrenia, for example, or depression. Those are on two opposite sides of the spectrum, right? Depression may be more treatable, more mild. Schizophrenia really is a little bit more complicated. But, if we look at those two diagnoses, it's really easy to go to therapy and talk about it, to get clarification, feedback, skills, coping skills, and appropriate interventions. You can also take medication that once you take it begins to affect the brain, which in turn affects how you're going to function and behave in daily life. With a personality disorder, we're talking about something that is fixed and chronic. It's not easy to treat. A personality disorder is not a mental illness. A mental illness is something that can be treated and changed over time. A personality disorder is something that you can't necessarily alter. You can try to help the individual be a little bit more aware of their ways. You can also try to help the individual go to counseling so that they can hear different ways from the therapist to manage their lives. But in order to treat the disorder, the personality disorder, it's really hard. You're not going to be able to take a pill and there's no more narcissism. You're not going to be able to just take a pill and there's no more sociopathy. It's going to be really difficult to treat that personality disorder. Think of it this way. If you're somebody who is humorous, talented, you can hit like really high notes. Let's take Mariah Carey and Demi Lovato, for example. There's a couple of other singers that can hit really high notes. Or if you're really just a cool, laid back type of a guy, and you have a nice deep voice and you kind of pull people in with it, those are all personality traits. Those are things that live inside of you deep down. It's a part of who you are. A personality disorder is the same exact way. It's a part of who you are. It's deeply ingrained. And so you can't counsel that. You can't counsel right? Somebody that can hit a high note. You can't counsel someone out of being cold and laid back. It's who they are genetically, chemically, biologically. That's a personality disorder. So that's the way that I want you to think of this. When you think of dependent personality disorder, let's think of that. It's fixed. It's not very easy to get rid of. And it's a part of who you are. It's deeply ingrained. Deeply ingrained. Okay? So let's go ahead and start with this. Okay? So the first sign that you're likely to see if you are dealing with, a dependent personality, or you have dependent personality traits, and you're trying to move on in your life, but you're finding it really difficult to, the first thing that you're likely to see is emotional overdependence on other people. You can even categorize this as enmeshment, okay? You're too ingrained. You're not necessarily codependent because you don't need that person to give you an identity, but you're overdependent on them. I need you to pay my bills because I don't know how to call. If you offer to do the bills online, that dependent person may say, yeah, but I don't know how to get on the website. You may give them the website and they're going to say, okay, but what tab do I go to? You show them what tab to go to and they're going to say, okay, which credit card should I use? Right? This is how they are. They're very repetitious. They're very needy, very over-dependent. This may be something that you're seeing in yourself as well. So, this kind of an individual, again, has a foundation of fear and anxiety. Now, enmeshment is when you're so ingrained that you're having a really hard time being individualistic. You're having a hard time with what we call the individuation process. Here's a definition of the individuation process. And basically what happens there, guys, is, you have a hard time just separating and not being so dependent, You're really dependent on the other person to take steps in your life for you. Okay, so overdependence. The next thing is being needy and passive. Needy and passive. Now you may see this in yourself, or you may be hanging on to somebody who has this particular characteristic. I talk about in this most recent video right up here, neediness and passivity is right up here. And I talk about kind of what that looks like. And when you have unhealthy associations, you're likely to become overdependent on them because they're going to feed you things that you feel that you need deep down, and you're going to become so dependent upon them that you're going to lose your ability to be individualistic. You're going to lose your ability to think for yourself, and you're going to become enmeshed and codependent. So needy and passivity. So neediness and passivity, I should say. Okay. The next thing is clinginess. And clingy behavior, we can call it, just I need to be with you. I need to be with you at all times. You may know somebody, or you may have suffered from separation anxiety disorder or some kind of separation anxiety where you have to know where that other person is at all times. Now, if you're dealing with somebody who's like this and it's weighing you down and you're trying to heal and get over a trauma history, they're gonna regress you because you need that space. You need that ability to be by yourself. You don't need someone clinging to you. Now, if you're the individual who's clingy and dependent and a lot of your personality traits, you're not going to be able to be individualistic because you're constantly looking for the next person to hold on to. So clinginess and clingy behavior, very, very unhealthy. The next thing is an inability to make wise decisions without double checking. Now, this may be something that you do with other people, or somebody else may be doing this with you. Either way, it's going to make it really hard for you to move forward in your own life because this individual, again, is very dependent. It's like they cling on to you and they just stay hooked on to you, almost like a parasite or some kind of bug or creature that just grabs a hold of you, and it's hard to get them to let you go. That's what I'm trying to say. Really, that's what dependent personality traits are like. It's really hard to either let go of somebody or cause that other person to let go of you. So if you see this particular personality trait, you're likely to see difficulty making decisions. And this individual, maybe it's you, maybe it's somebody else, they're going to always need someone to back them up, give them a second opinion, give them feedback. And they kind of stammer and they kind of, trip over their own feet, for lack of a better word. They kind of get confused in their own world. And then they turn to the other person and say, you know what, I need you to help me because I can't make a decision. And if I make a decision, I'm going to make the wrong decision. So I'm going to need you to do it. And a lot of them ramble like that, and they're really nervous because, again, the foundation of dependent personality traits is fear and anxiety. It's ingrained. It's like a personality. Okay, the next thing that you're likely to see is a need for frequent validation and reassurance. Now, whether this is you or somebody else, it's going to regress your progress in trying to overcome and heal your trauma history. You know, that constant need for validation and reassurance, if this is you and you need that, you know, it's good in its place, but then it's also bad, because what happens is you lose the ability to be yourself. You develop what's called learned helplessness. Here's a definition of learned helplessness right over here. You develop that, and when that other person that you depend on is not around, you are like a deer caught in headlights. You get stuck and you don't know which way to go because you've never flexed that muscle. You know, you never exercise that ability to be individualistic or independent. Okay, now if somebody is doing that to you and you're trying to move forward in your life and heal, all they're doing is like hanging on to your ankles while you're trying to pull them along. Not healthy at all. Okay, either way, whether that's you or somebody else, it's going to regress your progress. Okay, the next thing, guys, is fear of losing support. Now, you know, fear of losing support says this: I can't function without a support system. So I'm terrified that, you know, I'm going to be weak and vulnerable, and I'm going to be targeted without you. So, you know, I lost my support. Now it's time for me to either rush into another situation, another dating relationship, a marriage only after knowing each other for a month, whatever it may be. Or it could be, I'm going to go over here and find a really good friend or a neighbor that I could be dependent upon. Or I'm going to move in with a family member and really lean on them. You know, so, you know, it's unhealthy still because you don't have a boundary. Really, all of these things that I'm mentioning, guys, has a lot to do with setting appropriate boundaries. Without appropriate boundaries, you're going to sink. That's really the highlight of this entire video. Okay, guys, let's go to the next one. Difficulty expressing disagreement and, you know, kind of fearing confrontation. Now, you know, having this personality trait or somebody who's like this with you, here's the tool that you're most likely to see or use if this is you. Passive aggressive behavior, because you can't confront them directly. So what do? You walk around huffy, or they walk around huffy. You slam things, you ignore, you give the silent treatment, you stonewall. Here's the definition of stonewall right over here. You also gaslight. Here's the definition of gaslight right over here. Whatever you do, it's unhealthy, because you fear disagreement and you fear the consequences of that disagreement. And so because of that, you know, or somebody who's like that with you, because of that, you're going to either experience regression or you're going to regress yourself. Okay? Anything that causes you to stammer, turn around in the same line and get kind of lost and confused in your own mind, your emotions, in your world, it's going to pause your development forward. It's going to pause your healing, because really it's like a huge barrier in the middle of the road. You know, kind of imagine yourself driving on this long highway and you're making all this traction, and you've avoided potholes, you've avoided stray animals, you've avoided bad traffic incidents, you've avoided all kind of stuff on the road, and here you come right up against a huge barrier that you can't drive around, you can't get over it. Now you have to try to kind of think of ways to get around it. That's kind of what's going on here metaphorically. Okay, so let me tighten this up so you understand what I'm saying here. If you are dealing with a trauma history and you're trying to heal, and somebody else is displaying all of these characteristics that I've just talked about, you're going to get stuck in your trauma right where you are, because now you have to pause and deal with that person who's causing the problem for you, because you can't move forward when you have someone holding on to your ankles. Now, the other side of this is if you are demonstrating some of these behavioral patterns or traits, it's going to be hard for you to move forward, because you can't be independent. You can't be independent while you're being dependent and holding on to somebody. Okay, so that's what I meant metaphorically. All right, let's go to the next one, guys. So the next one is, immediately searching for reconnection when you lose somebody or something. You know, it's like, I need somebody else so badly because my marriage just, got broken up. We just separated. My girlfriend just broke up with me, or my boyfriend just broke up with me. My boss just fired me. My cousin just blocked me on social media. Whatever the situation is, if you're dependent in your personality traits, or you know somebody like this, the next fix that they need is the next relationship. It's kind of like a drug addiction almost. I need that next relationship right over there to feel better about me, okay? And really, It's low self-esteem, anxiety, and fear that causes that immediate need for reconnection. Now, the last two would be negative self-talk. I'm stupid, I'm hopeless, I'm never going to be anything, I'm always going to live here in this house and not make anything of myself, I'm not worthy, I'm not smart, I don't have any skills. All of that negative self-talk that the other person does around you. Remember, in my first video on this topic, I'm talking about unhealthy associations. If you have somebody that you're associated with that has this repetitive negative self-talk and they share it with you, or it comes through in how they interact with the world, that's a problem because it's going to rub off on you. Now, if you're the one who is, kind of housing those negative beliefs about yourself, you're still going to stammer and get stuck in your trauma healing because, again, you can't push forward if you've got this huge barrier in your way. And last but not least, guys, is self-efficacy, right? And we're going to say a lack of efficacy, a lack of self-efficacy. And basically, here's the definition of self-efficacy. If you lack that, you're not going to be able to see the skills that you possess, the values that you possess, the traits that are wonderful for other people to have. And if you're living with somebody in your life that has very, very poor self-esteem, doesn't believe that they are capable, they don't have confidence, it's going to rub off on you. So I want you to keep in mind as we move forward in this series, guys, that it's very, very important to stay on top of the game as you're moving forward and trying to heal. Thank you so much for being with me today, guys, in this video. Please give it a thumbs up and hit that bell button so you can get more videos just like this. All right, guys, I'll see you soon. Bye.